Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Used Full Kurama Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
After everything with Mizuki, Naruto asked the Hokage, "Nay, Gigi, am I really the Kyuubi?" As they sat in his office after what happened with Mizuki. "No, Naruto," the Hokage told him harshly. "I promise you, no." He asked, "But how do you know for sure? All of the villagers scowl at me and call me monster and demon. So how do you know? Maybe Yondaime messed up and I really am the fox." Sandaime thought. "Alright, let me show you something." He took two things out of a drawer. He held one of them up and asked, "What is this?" "A kunai," Naruto replied. "And this?" he asked. "A scroll?" Naruto was confused. "Alright, now watch." Naruto carefully watched as the Hokage wrote some characters on the scroll, put the kunai on top of the characters, and used a flash of chakra to make it work. The kunai was gone in a puff of smoke. He asked Naruto, "Do you know what I did?" Naruto shook his head. He held up the finished item and said, "I used fuinjutsu to seal the kunai into the scroll." "Now what is this?" A scroll with a kunai sealed into it?" "That's right, as far as it goes," the Hokage said. "But is this a scroll or a kunai?" "A scroll." "Exactly," the happy Hokage replied. "Now do you understand?" After Naruto thought about what Sandaime meant for a moment, the lights turned on. He said, "Ooh," meaning he got it. To which Sandaime replied, "So I'm not the Kyuubi then?" "The Kyuubi is just imprisoned inside me and held there by a seal," he stated. When Sandaime said yes, Naruto began to think. The Kyuubi no Kitsune, the strongest demon that had ever lived, was defeated and locked up by a seal. Even though it was just ink on paper or a stomach, it had so much power. Naruto decided, "Yeah, I need to get some of that." The Sandaime had already left when they turned around to put the scroll away. Since the Konoha Shinobi library was open all the time, Naruto went there right away, even though it was late when he left the Hokage tower. Lucky for Naruto, it was late enough that he didn't meet anyone else. He didn't know his way around the library very well, but it didn't take him long to find what he needed. People might have thought he was the stupidest person in the world, but Naruto had never cared about stupid things like grades anyway. Class was boring, but this interested him. So, he took 6 dusty books from the broken down old shelf that was only for fuinjutsu and read them when he got back to his apartment. Everyone who graduated from the academy had a week off. This let them get their ninja registrations from the administration office, but more importantly, it let the academy instructors suggest teams to the Hokage. The Hokage then had time to approve or change the suggestions and give each team a Junin sensei. Naruto had been trying to learn fuinjutsu for a whole week. He hadn't seen any of his classmates in a while, and they didn't know about his special graduation yet. That's why some people were surprised when Naruto showed up at the academy the following week. As Shikamaru looked around, he asked Naruto, "Didn't you know this meeting was only for graduates?" To answer, Naruto just pointed to his forehead protector because he was too focused on his book to speak. He slid into an empty seat in the back without being asked again, but that didn't mean no one else was interested. What happened was that interest was sparked. Uzumaki Naruto had passed even though he had failed the test. He was also reading. Outside. Choosing to. While some of them looked to see if the sky was falling, Sakura and Ino walked in and took everyone's attention off of Naruto to watch them fight over who would sit next to Sasuke. Sasuke, on the other hand, wouldn't even look at them. He just stared straight ahead and laughed. They got so into their fight over who would get to sit next to Sasuke that they started wrestling on the floor. At that very moment, Iruka came in, which was bad for them. He asked, "Sakura, Ino, what are you doing?" Sakura stuttered, not sure what to say. It was easy for Ino to say, "Just some last-minute practicing, sensei," because he was used to trying to avoid trouble. Right, sensei," Sakura quickly agreed with her. "Well, that's enough. Why don't you both sit up here in the front where I can make sure you don't have any more last-minute practices?" Iruka asked. The girls slouched, but they did what he said. After a short speech by Iruka, the class learned that they were now proud to be ninja of Konoha and should behave in a way that did not bring shame to the shinobi corps. That's when he looked at Sakura and Ino the most. After that, he named the teams. The only thing Naruto knew about what Iruka was saying was that he was on Team 7 with Sakura and Sasuke. He was busy with his book, though. He wasn't bothered when everyone left for lunch, when everyone came back to meet their Junin sensei, or when his sensei left him, Sakura, and Sasuke to wait for more than 2 hours. When their sensei finally showed up, Naruto looked at him and felt a recognition that didn't last long. The Junin with silver hair looked over all of them. My first impression of you is, you're not worth my time. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke all left, leaving Naruto alone on the roof of the academy. He thought about Kakashi and what he had said. However, they were not allowed to eat before the survival test. 66% of the time, they failed. Naruto had failed the final exam 3 times, so he knew that many students had passed but were still at the academy for another year. He just didn't know that their Junin sensei had sent them back. Naruto couldn't afford to be sent back to the academy because he barely made it this time. He would have a new teacher if he were sent back. He didn't think he would have a chance without Iruka. He needed to learn more about Kakashi's survival test because of this. He was lucky that he was already at the academy. By himself. It made him laugh as he thought of all the tricks he could pull. But then he remembered the hit I ate on his forehead and woke up right away. Now that he was a ninja, he couldn't play jokes on anyone. Even so, he would still use his trick or treasure skills. A lot of times, Naruto had been called to the academy's administrative office. He knew where it was and that the students' personnel records were kept in the filing cabinet on the wall to the left of the door, sorted by year and class. Those records were the only thing that was stopping him. He also knew that they couldn't have set up deadly traps in a school full of kids, after all. Naruto knew how to pick locks as quickly and easily as a professional thief because of the people in his neighborhood. He jumped off the roof and through the office door in 30 seconds. It only took him a few breaths to open the file cabinet. He slowly began to turn the records over. First year, second, third, fourth, bingo, review year. He went through the students until he found the 3 that Kakashi had been given last year. One of them really disliked him, and the other 2 had quit. But Kensuke, one of them, he knew pretty well because they lived in the same neighborhood. Naruto thought that he might be able to get him to help. He carefully put everything back where he had found it, then locked the office and cabinet doors. He then looked for Kensuke. He found him playing a shell game in the southwest corner of Konohazakasen, which is the red light district. He stayed out of sight until Kensuke's marks stopped working, and then he came out. "Hey, Naruto," Kensuke said to him. "How's it hanging?" He shrugged and said, "Meh, a little to the left these days." Naruto pointed to his hit I ate and said, "You know, I got this a few days ago and was hoping you could help me figure out a few things." He put his dark hair behind his ear and raised an eyebrow behind his glasses. He asked, "Is that true? Well, play me. Win and I'll answer your questions. Lose and you owe me a favor. Fair?" He agreed and watched Kensuke turn over the shells to show him there was no trick and where the Queen of Spades was. Later, he began spinning them to make Naruto lose track of which shell held the queen. Without taking his eyes off the table, Naruto said, "You've gotten better at this." When he stopped moving the shells around, he said, "I've had a lot of practice since dropping out. Now tell me, where's my lady?" For no real reason, Naruto hit the 2 empty shells with his hands. He did this to make sure Kensuke didn't try to trick him. Kensuke let out a sigh and lifted the last shell to show that it did, in fact, hold the queen. Kensuke said, "TCH, I should have known better than to bet against you. What do you want to know?" "I've been assigned to Hitaki Kakashi." Naruto ate a big breakfast the next morning, because he had learned something from Kensuke. He thought about being late, but decided it would be better to be on time. To be ready in case Kakashi showed up. He also brought the newest book on Fuinjutsu with him so he wouldn't waste the time he thought he would have to wait. He was the only one who didn't rush to get there early, so he was the last one there. "Hey, guys," he said. Sasuke made a noise, and Sakura waved. Naruto then sat down to wait. When it came down to it, timing was everything. He heard Sakura's stomach rumble after 2 hours of silence. "Wait 10 minutes longer, and Sasuke will answer." Naruto thought this as he took out a big bag of dumplings and started to eat them. Sakura accused, "Kakashi-sensei told us not to eat this morning." "No," Naruto said without much thought, listening to their stomachs grind loudly as he ate another one. "He made a recommendation that we not eat before we came because he thought we would throw up. He also said we would be taking a survival test, and I remember the last survival test we took at the academy had us hunting and scavenging for food for 3 days. So you better believe I ate this morning. Are you saying you guys didn't?" Naruto had thought of something better than Sakura, who blinked. Naruto, who was last in the class, had a better understanding of what was going on than she and Sasuke, who were first and second. That made her not know what to do. Sasuke only frowned. Naruto said, "Hun," and scratched his chin as if he were thinking. "Well, I'll share my dumplings with you. Whatever Kakashi has in mind, it'll be better if we're not starving when we go into it. So here." He offered the dumplings. He smiled when Sasuke reached for one. That's right. After 30 minutes, Kakashi found them happily snacking on dumplings with each other. He was shocked that they didn't pay any attention to his warnings, so he just stood there and stared for a moment. I said, "Ohio," and Naruto smiled. He got a raised eyebrow from Sasuke, and Sakura frowned and said, "You're late." "Ma, a black cat crossed my path and I had to go the other way around the village to get here," he said. All three of his possible students gave him dirty looks. Kakashi gave a smile. He felt like he liked these jerks more and more. All three of them were hidden. The friendship they had formed that morning over a snack was already at work. They had all run away from Kakashi together without even thinking about it. "That means only two of us can pass," Sakura said with sadness. Somehow, she liked Naruto a little more that morning. He wasn't really that bad when he wasn't being a jerk or constantly asking her out on dates. Naruto said, "No, this is an all-or-nothing test," which surprised everyone else. They didn't know what to think about him. "I am not going back to the academy for a review year," he said. "So I did some research on this Hitaki guy. And I got some information about this bell test of his. It's all an effing mind trip." "Hun?" Sasuke asked. "What do you mean?" Naruto said, "Genin teams are passed and failed whole. That's why they're so careful picking them. So Kakashi only having 2 bells is a trick to drive us apart." Sasuke's eyes got red with anger, and Sakura let out a soft, "Oh," as she realized what was going on. They knew Naruto was right after only a moment of thought. Genin's sad return to the academy for review year was something else they saw. They had also never been upset when their teammates played without them. But there were people who did say that their teammates were to blame for the review year. "Naruto," Sasuke yelled, mad that his new teacher had tried to joke around with him. "What else do you know?" "A lot," Naruto said with a sly grin, "and I have a plan." Sasuke, not Naruto, was the first person to attack Kakashi, which caught him off guard. He thought Naruto would be the most impulsive of all of them. Kakashi slowly led Sasuke to where he needed to go. In the wings, Sakura and Naruto were waiting. He forced a smile as he thought about whether this was the first time a team had worked together. Then Sasuke changed his strategy all of a sudden, switching from a left jab to the torso to a grappling move. Even though Kakashi tried to move him, Sasuke yelled, "Now!" and he couldn't. When Sasuke told Naruto and Sakura to come out of the bush, they did. Naruto was focused very hard on something. He wasn't sure what it was, but he thought it had something to do with the fact that he and Sasuke were both still. Naruto grunted, "Go, Sakura," and kept his hands sealed and as still as possible. Sakura sped up and grabbed the bells, then turned around and ran back to Naruto. "Sasuke, get ready," Naruto told him. All of a sudden, Kakashi was able to move again, but Sasuke had already fallen and was rolling toward his teammates. As soon as Sasuke moved, a piece of paper fell to the ground. When Kakashi bent down to pick it up, he saw a seal on it. He saw that this was how they had been frozen. He was interested in where they got it and how Naruto knew how to use it. He then took a closer look and wondered what it was. He had never seen a seal that looked quite like that before. "Well, Sakura," he said, putting the piece of paper back in his bag to look at it more closely later. "Which of the boys are you giving your second bell to?" She looked confused as she said, "But, we work together, sensei. Don't we all pass? I told you that whoever had a bell would eat lunch, and whoever didn't would get tied to a post and sent back to the academy. So, since you have both, you get to pick which of the boys passes, and which gets sent back." Kakashi stopped and rubbed his chin. "Unless, of course, you're going to keep both bells for yourself and send both of them back." "That isn't fair," she said. "It took all 3 of us working together to get the bells." "Life isn't fair," Kakashi said without much stress. "Give it to Sasuke," Naruto told Kakashi as he looked at him with closed eyes. "He's bluffing. He'll pass all of us or none of us." "I assure you I do not bluff." "Then give it to Naruto," Sasuke told him. "It's about time the Uchiha seat on the council worked for something other than collecting dust. It would be interesting to see their reaction to the number of genin Kakashi has failed," Naruto said. "I believe the total so far is 21, 12 of whom passed their subsequent exam, and at least 8 of them had relatives on the council." Kakashi was curious about how Naruto knew that, and if the boys were telling the truth. He had to give them points because it was very brave of them to try to scare their Junin sensei into passing them. "Meh," he replied. "The worst that could happen to me is that I wouldn't be given a team. And since I'm trying to fail you anyway, that is my end goal. You, of course, would all still fail." "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura said to herself. Then, to their surprise, she gave each boy a bell. "I did the least. If anyone deserves to go back, it's me." Kakashi smiled, happy that he could finally beat this team. A team that should have passed. He told her, good choice. But, you all pass. He saw Naruto get a kind and grateful look from the other two kids. Says Sakura, how did you know, Naruto? He sure didn't sound like he was bluffing. Ma, Naruto said as he rubbed his head. You should never try to con a conman. You? Sasuke asked with doubt. Naruto gave a sly smile and shrugged. I may've run a game or two in my time, said he. She asked, really? What do you mean? Kakashi shook his head, happy that his team was getting closer. He hedged his answer with a smile. Well, you know, a good con artist never tells his tricks. Sakura started to yell. What, Naruto? Kakashi asked. Mo, don't think about me. It was all of your choices to give up the bell for your teammates that made me pass you. There's something important I want you to remember. For shinobi, rules are important. They govern almost all of our existence. But to think, as you did this morning when you ignored my words telling you not to eat, is more important. And most important of all are these bonds we forge with our comrades. So one day, when you were presented with the choice between following the rules or saving your comrade, I want you to remember this moment, when you, 3 genin, worked together and broke the rules and sacrificed yourself to defeat a Junin and help each other succeed. They kept quiet while they thought about what he said. Congratulations, Kakashi told them. Now, we're officially Team 7. We'll meet at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning at that bridge. As of now, all of Konoha's Junin were waiting at the Triple Kunai, a bar near the Hokage Tower that only shinobi could enter. As Kakashi walked to the back, where a big table had been set up, he saw that he was the last person with a genin team to arrive. Well? Asuma asked right away. Everyone moaned as Kakashi shrugged. Not another team failed, Guy complained. My eternal rival, why must you douse the flames of? They passed, he said in response. Everyone went cold. Asuma asked, what was that? Hayate coughed and asked, can you say that again? I'm sure I must not have heard that correctly. Did you actually say you passed a team? Anko tried to sneak into Kakashi's lap while the attention was on something else, but he stood up at the last second to get around, and she only got to take his seat. Anko muttered, we knew it was going to happen sometime. Hokage-sama must have made him. Nope, Kakashi said with a smile as he came back. They're just an exceptional bunch. Now which of you passed your brats? Asuma said, mine were pretty much born together. They passed my test easily. Shikamaru can throw a plan together pretty easily, and they were able to catch me no problem. I let Ino and Choji maneuver me into position for Shikamaru to catch me with his family's shadow jutsu. This was my first team, Kurenai said. But they worked together well. I had them try to find me, and it took them a few hours but they did it. A few other Junin talked about failing their teams. Mine failed, too. Idiots, all of them. Now spill it, Hitaki, Genma asked. I want to hear about this team that passed your infamous bell test. Well, when I got there, they were all eating dumplings together like I never told them not to, he said, still not sure what was going on. The other people started to laugh. The eternal rival, Guy, slapped him on the back and said, it looks like you've been given a team that will test your youth. More like he got stuck with brats as hard-headed and ornery as he is, Asuma said. Kakashi quickly went over the rest of the test and then took out the sealed piece of paper. Have any of you ever seen a seal like this? He asked me. Anko, Asuma, and Guy all took a quick look at the paper. They had all worked with seals before. Anko poked it a few times and then tried to turn it on, but the paper just fell apart. She said, well, shit. Kakashi watched as the torn paper flew away and thought about what his team would face next. When Team 7's genin showed up the next morning, they had to wait for a long time again. I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to become a habit of his, Naruto said as he leaned against a bridge railing, very angry. Grunted Sasuke, who was also annoyed. I sighed, Sakura. Well, I brought dango to share, she said after some thought, if you'd like. Naruto was excited that someone was going to share food with him. Really? He asked. Sakura agreed with a happy, it was only fair, since you shared your dumplings with us yesterday. He took a stick from the bag Sakura had set out and said, thanks, Sakura. He conveniently forgot to say that the only reason he brought the dumplings was to talk about how well he knew the test. Sasuke jumped off the railing where he was standing and joined them. If this happens again tomorrow, Sasuke said, we should start planning something to do. I refuse to waste hours every day waiting on that man, even if he is our sensei. When Kakashi finally showed up, he was met by 3 genin who were eating snacks and making plans, it looked like. He was interested in what had made them so angry. Ohio, Mina-san, he said to me. You're late, Sakura told him. Ah, well, Sasuke cut him off and asked, is this something we can expect from you often? Because we have other things we can be doing besides waiting for you, you know, Naruto said. Kakashi blinked in surprise as he looked at the three of them. They were all staring at him with their arms crossed over their chests. Not even the Hokage talked to him about being late, at least not directly, and these genin thought to do it on their second day as his students. He thought they were cute, though, and was glad his mask kept his smile hidden. Taking their attention away, he said, Ma, let's do some training, ne? He had them all do katas for the basic style of taijutsu that was taught at the academy. He frowned as he watched Naruto. Hold, he said, and Naruto stopped moving. They had all learned that at the academy. He tripped and fell because Kakashi poked him. Your left foot should be another step forward and turned out more in that stance. Again. Naruto did the right thing by getting back up. Shoulders back for this one. He changed Naruto's positions in small but important ways all the way through. In the end, Kakashi asked, "Didn't you listen to your teachers at all?" In response to Mizuki's words, Naruto's mouth shut tight. Sakura spoke up and said, "I remember that. Mizuki-sensei spent a whole week with you working on your taijutsu." When Naruto said, "Mizuki hated me," he said it in such a casual way that even Sasuke looked up. "I'm not surprised he taught me wrong." Kakashi put that away to think about it more later and had Naruto do the kata a few more times before he was happy with it. After that, they went to the next one. Over the course of the whole morning, Kakashi slowly changed Naruto's positions and moves for all of the basic academy katas. After that, he let them have lunch. Sakura almost asked Sasuke to go to lunch with her, but she didn't. For the past 2 days, he had talked to her, and she hadn't even asked him to. And Naruto. He seemed to be able to make it happen. He wasn't as bad as she thought he was either. She decided that maybe it would be best to work on being a team right now. She said yes. After all, love could always come after this. She asked, "Hey, do you two want to go get lunch?" "Yeah," Naruto said with joy. He saw Sasuke thinking about it. Sasuke smiled and nodded when he heard this. "And we can finish up from this morning, you know." Nairo said, "Come on. I know the best ramen stand in Konoha." Kakashi kept a wary eye on his students as they pulled weeds out of a pumpkin patch for their latest D-level mission. This had been going on for a few weeks while they were on missions. During morning training, everything was fine. In the afternoon, though, they seemed to be calmer and less noisy. At first, he put it off by saying that they were just tired from working out in the morning. Then he said it was because they both didn't like the D-ranked missions. That being said, Asuma became suspicious when he said that he had seen his team training the day before. Kakashi had been watching as they picked up trash in a nearby park. They told him they were who they said they were, so he looked at them closely for any sign that they weren't. He still couldn't find anything. Sasuke was still the mostly rude and emotionally stunted brat, Sakura was still yelling at Naruto and staring at Sasuke, and Naruto was still laughing and smiling like a fool. On second thought, Kakashi saw that Sakura wasn't hitting Naruto as hard as she used to. When he thought about what that meant, his eye got bigger. Could they be cage bunshins? He was curious. He thought he had made his point about Naruto not teaching them that jutsu clear, but how else could they be in 2 places at once? Not at all. He knew that Sakura would be in the intensive care unit of Konoha General Hospital if she really tried to make a shadow copy. It didn't mean Naruto couldn't make shadow copies of his teammates, though. They could use henge to look like his teammates. While he watched his students walk down the orange row, he thought about this and had the random thought that Naruto's outfit might work somewhere in Konoha as background. Sakura was standing there when she tripped over a vine and fell into Sasuke. He tried to steady them both but failed. After that, they fell to the ground and broke a pumpkin. Sasuke groaned as he rubbed his back and peeled pumpkin guts off of his shirt. "Okay," Sakura said, "sorry, Sasuke-kun." Naruto shook his head and helped them both get up, but he couldn't hide the smile on his face. Kakashi thought that meant Sasuke and Sakura were not clones. Naruto might still be a copy, though. In the end, Naruto did provide the main push in the team dynamic. Kakashi thought it would make a lot of sense for him to be quieter if he were a clone and didn't want to get hit for being stupid. This would make Sakura and Sasuke quieter as well. He hit Naruto with a rock with wings to see if his conclusion was true. He then opened his eyes in surprise when Naruto turned around to block it with a kunai. Sakura and Sasuke quickly moved into defense next to him. Naruto pointed his finger at him and said, "Oi, what the hell was that for?" Kakashi smiled and said, Ma, I just wanted to see if you were on your toes." Then he popped up out of nowhere in front of the blonde and gave her a sucker punch. "Oof," Natsu said as he rolled back and threw 2 shinobi at the same time to give himself room to move. Sasuke and Sakura did the same. He yelled, "What the fuck, that wasn't keeping me on my toes." "Nope," Kakashi said with a smile, catching the shuriken and throwing it back without any fuss. Naruto blinked and said, "That was me checking to see if you're a cage bunshin," then looked at him strangely. Ever think of asking? No? Kakashi asked, rubbing his head. What a fool, Sasuke said in a low voice. Kakashi gave a smile. He asked, what was that? You want extra laps tomorrow? I guess I can let you do that. His 3 genin all gave him a mean look. Kakashi didn't know how to feel about his genin. They weren't too bad all around. They didn't vent their anger at him too much and kept to themselves. It didn't bother them because they were smart enough to understand what he was trying to teach right away. Sometimes they were also smartass, but Kakashi thought that was a good thing because it kept him awake. He thought he was missing something, though. Big thing. As he went to the bar to meet up with some of the other Junin who were sent to Konoha for the duration, he was still thinking about it. Yo, he said as he sat down at the table. My rival, I must say how unyouthful it is for you to leave your genin to train themselves for hours on end, Guy said. Ma. Kakashi waved the complaint away while getting a drink. It's good for them. A few hours of teaching themselves and each other helps make them self-reliant. They know how to get things done without anyone spoon-feeding it to them. Asuma laughed and asked, self-reliant? I'll say. I'd love my genin to have even a hint of their, self-reliance. And motivation. To stay and train for 5 or 6 hours a day by themselves, that's impressive for genin. Kakashi looked at him with interest, being careful not to reveal anything. He had never left his team to train on their own for 5 or 6 hours. They like to surprise me from time to time. When was it you saw them? Asuma asked. Today? Kakashi tried not to show how surprised he was by the answer. You mean to tell me you do this regularly? Kurenai told Kakashi, you should be teaching these kids. How are they supposed to learn if you leave them to themselves? Kakashi smiled and said, oh, believe me, Kurenai. My kids learn just fine. In fact, sometimes, they're too smart for their own good. He got there first thing in the morning, before any of his genin. If the other Junin was right and this really did happen that often, then Kurenai and Guy were right and he was being too easy on himself. Even so, he didn't like how they made it sound like he was just burned out. Because he was always 1.5 to 2 hours late, the fact that his genin showed up so quickly surprised him. He had been there for an hour before the meeting time he always set. He sat down to watch, and what he saw opened his eyes wide. Naruto greeted Sasuke and Sakura briefly and then threw what must have been a few dozen kunai at them. Each one turned into Naruto and then into a shinobi without a face. Most of them were fought by Sasuke at first, while Sakura fought a few. The free-for-all really got going when Naruto joined the fight on the side of the faceless shinobi. Kakashi wondered if they were Kage Bunshin and if that Sharingan that he saw flashing in Sasuke's eyes was real. Kakashi started to feel a little sick, and it didn't make him feel better as he watched. They were solid clones because they didn't go away no matter how hard Sasuke hit them. Kakashi's jaw dropped. Konoha Shinobi had been trying for years but couldn't figure it out, and it looked like his students had done it right in front of him. He watched them for almost 2 hours before they slowed down. He didn't understand why. After taking something out of his bag, Sasuke smiled as Naruto jumped on it. Onigiri. Naruto yelled with joy. Yes. I love it when it's your turn to bring seconds. They ate and sat still, resting and refueling as Kakashi realized they were waiting for him. At that moment, he almost showed himself, but Naruto touched 2 seal strips and stopped him. Naruto asked, are you guys ready? They said, yes. She turned her back on him, and Sasuke stepped forward to help her lean against him. Before Kakashi's eyes could go too far, Naruto took off her dress and stuck one of the seal strips on the small of her back. He then cut his thumb and spread it over both the seal strip on Sakura and the one he was holding. Then he made a Kage Bunshin around the seal strip in his hand. Instead of Naruto, Sakura showed up. Sakura was shaking her head as Naruto zips her dress back up before Kakashi could get better. She said, that always feels so weird. Then Sasuke's turn came. To let Naruto in, he pulled his shirt up, and Naruto put a seal on him, making him a Sasuke Kage Bunshin. He then threw a kunai, and a copy of Naruto showed up. Kakashi was amazed. His kids had done amazing things in the short time they had been genin. Kakashi was upset because he couldn't really say that he had anything to do with their success. It looked like his team had been working around him instead of with him, and he had been too lazy to stop them. Because his team had found a way to give him in the bad D-rank missions to clones. Kakashi was angry. He might not have known about it for weeks. He thought about whether the clones were also being used for his training. He thought the clones would be fine with even tough training based on what he had seen of them that morning. Ready? The Naruto copy asked. The clones of Sasuke and Sakura said, yes, and left. That answered at least one question. The jerks stayed to learn. Not only Naruto knew Kage Bunshin no jutsu, though. That's why Kakashi sent one of his own after the clones to see what they were up to. After a short time, Kakashi jumped down from the tree where he was watching. "Ohio, sensei," Naruto said to greet him. Sakura gave a happy smile, and Sasuke. Well, he didn't frown, which wasn't really a good greeting. Their happiness didn't make Kakashi happy. Training that morning was very hard. While they thought he was gone, he let them take a lunch break to keep an eye on them. It looked like the three genin almost fell into each other. Sakura asked, "What did we do?" It was like he was angry with us. Really, really angry. But I can't figure out what we did wrong. "Ma, don't worry, Sakura-chan," Naruto told her with a tired grin. "He probably just didn't get laid last night or something. I've heard his favorite girl at the tea house he likes is sick or something." The hairs on Kakashi's forehead reached his hairline. Sakura told him, "Baka, don't say like that in front of a lady." Naruto sighed and looked at Sasuke. Naruto said in a dramatic voice, "No, sorry, Sasuke-chan. I didn't mean to offend your delicate, virgin ears." They both hit him in the back of the head. Sasuke told him, "Don't be a fool, you jerk." But Kakashi saw the funny twitch in his lip as he said it. Kakashi wasn't sure if he was in the real world or not. The bentos Sasuke gave them were quickly eaten, and then the clones came back. "All right, guys, are you ready?" Naruto asked. They said yes, so Naruto pushed them away and grabbed the kunai from his clone before it hit the ground. They all looked like they passed out when he sat down with a thump. Kakashi decided that this was indeed a crazy world. Then his own shadow clone came back and went away. As he looked over the clone's memories of the morning, he understood why it wanted to take a nap. It looked like his kids were trying to figure out jutsu scrolls on one of the nearby practice grounds. This is why the other Junin thought he was so lazy. He was, at least, acting lazier than he really was. Another 30 minutes went by before any of them moved, and a few more minutes before they were able to get up. "Do you have the chakra to make clones before afternoon, or should we forego it this time?" Sakura wanted to know. He opened his mouth and yawned. "Nah, I'm good. You guys alright for it?" They went through the process again after he got 2 nods. Kakashi wasn't sure where the first time seal strips went because he saw that Sakura and Sasuke's backs were free of the old seals. The 3 new clones just appeared out of thin air and left right away. Kakashi made a copy of them to follow them because he didn't understand where they were going if they were supposed to meet him to do the mission. After a short time, it went away, letting Kakashi know that the clones were back to practicing on their own training ground. That's when he realized that his real kids weren't gone, they were just waiting for him where they were supposed to be. He realized that Asuma and the others must have seen clones at work while the real ones were with him on the bad D-ranked mission. When he realized they were telling lies, his anger at them went away, but his anger at himself for not taking care of the kids returned. He was sure that Minato-sensei would never have missed something so important. He promised his kids that he would be better for them. Kakashi got down from his tree and went into the clearing. "So we need to talk." These 3 kids looked at him. Sasuke asked, "No mission today, sensei?" She was ignored by Kakashi. Kakashi said, "You 3 have been busy little bees." He then watched as shock spread across all of their faces. For some reason, the boys closed off. Guarded looks were what worried Kakashi more than anything else. With those looks, he made it clear that he was the enemy and that something valuable should be kept away from him. He thought about going ahead anyway, but then shook his head. He promised to do better, and he owed these kids, his old sensei, and his old teammates. He agreed to let them back into his apartment, even though the thought of them being in his personal space made him feel uncomfortable. He had thought the walk there was tense and painfully awkward. That wasn't even close to how it was when they were all at his house. This is when he realized his living room didn't have 4 chairs after all. In fact, all he had was the old, broken-down couch that was facing the TV and was very comfortable. Plus, he didn't want it to look like he was lecturing them, so he decided that putting them all on the couch while he got a chair from the kitchen probably wasn't the best idea. He didn't want to break up the them versus me attitude they seemed to have. He dragged them all into the kitchen, where there was at least a table and chairs for everyone. Would any of you like tea?" he asked, vaguely remembering that as a child he had been told to give guests something to drink. Sakura said, "Please say yes, sensei." Naruto just shrugged, and Sasuke nodded. After Kakashi filled his kettle with water and put it on the stove, he realized he needed to find 4 cups. He looked through his cabinets until he found a stack of dirty cups that must have belonged to the last tenants because he had no idea where else they could have come from. He quickly washed them and set them on the table. Then he measured out the tea, dumped it into the pot, and added water to let it steep. Once Kakashi had poured for everyone, he knew he had done enough stupid things for the day and it was probably time to talk. Kakashi slowly began, "If you would like another Junin sensei, I will understand and accept that. I can fill out the transfer request in the morning, if you like. I'm sure there are many other Junin who come more easily to teaching than I do." The eyes of all 3 genin went straight to him. Sensei. Sakura asked, not sure what to say. I've been trying to understand why my genin would hide their development from me, and this is the only answer I can come up with, said Kakashi. Otherwise, why wouldn't you share with me when Sasuke activated his Sharingan? Or that Naruto is a budding Funjutsu prodigy? Or that Sakura is delving into medical jutsu and genjutsu both with fervor? They kept quiet. Naruto leaned his head back and stared at the ceiling, while Sasuke glared into his cup. Sakura looked down and bit her lip. He asked, well? Because you wouldn't care, Naruto finally told her straight out. You leave us waiting for you for hours, so can you really blame us for coming up with something to do when you aren't around? And if you can't bother to show up, why would you care to hear about what we do when you aren't around? Kakashi asked, have I forgotten about your training? If you compare what I've taught you over the past few weeks to what the other new genin have learned, have you been short-changed? No, sensei, Sakura said. Ino even said that her sensei hasn't gone over half of the things you've shown us yet. He saw that Sasuke and Naruto were both surprised by this and wondered if either of them had ever talked to the other new genin. Based on their pasts, he thought not. So leaving you to your own devices for a few hours hasn't hurt your progress. And I have my reasons for letting you train yourselves. Increased teamwork and bonding, teaching you self-reliance, letting you work out what I've shown you and decompress a bit. None of which, I realize, seem very important at 12, but I assure you all of them are essential, said Kakashi. And let me be very clear about this so there's no misunderstanding. I care very much. At that point, he had their full attention, especially Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi asked, Mo, would any of you like to tell me about what you've been up to over the past few weeks? He was hoping that one of them would start to talk. They all looked at each other and then laughed. Kakashi could feel the stress he wasn't aware he was holding in his shoulders leaving them. They talked with Kakashi for the rest of the afternoon, telling him what they had accomplished and listening to his advice, suggestions, and plans for future training. It made a strange amount of sense to all of them. He knew that Sasuke had used his Sharingan and tried to make it stronger by turning it into a 3-tomo. Sakura told him about her desire to learn medical jutsu and how she came to be interested in it, and Naruto was telling him all about the seals he had made. He opened a storage scroll and found a big jutsu scroll that had all of his notes and calculations on the Onigiri Kage Bunshin and the Inada Kage Bunshin, as Naruto had started calling them. So basically, I just added another layer to the durability seals I created so that it's... Kakashi let the sound of Naruto's voice wash over him. He thought he knew how to use seals well, but Naruto lost him in the first few sentences of his high-level explanations. Naruto showed him graphs and calculations that showed the kid doing things with seals that he had never seen or heard of. He planned to find Jiraiya, one of the best seal masters in the world, and ask him to talk to the kid to make sure he wouldn't blow himself up. Their training went through the roof after that day. Because he felt bad about not paying attention, Kakashi started to really give his team his all. It would be too mild to say that the training wasn't tough. Kakashi started to work on Sasuke's Sharingan to help him improve all 3 of his Tomo and learn how to use and understand the one he already had better. For Naruto, he taught him everything he knew about seals. The boy learned so quickly and easily that he knew he was almost ahead of him. It worked the same way for Sakura's medical jutsu. But Kakashi taught them more than that. Because of how he looked, he wasn't one of Konoha's best Junin, even though his friends thought he was way past his prime. Because of this, Kakashi put a lot of time and effort into each skill he thought a good shinobi should have. As their teacher, he worked with them on taijutsu, strategy, tactics, stamina, chakra control, and many other things that other Junin sensei rarely talked about or expected them to be very good at. They were pushed hard, fast, and far, and they did great. When the Hokage asked Kakashi if his team was ready for a C-rank mission almost 3 months early, Kakashi was sure they were. The Hokage thought about Kakashi's promise and said, well, I have one I was going to give to a more experienced genin team. He had never seen the man look so sure of himself and calm. The Junin said, we'll take it, my kids can handle it. When the Hokage heard that, he smiled. Those were his kids. Yes, it looked like Kakashi had finally made peace with his past. When Kakashi joined them that afternoon, he said, I have gotten us a very important mission. He pouted because it looked like his kids didn't trust him. All 3 of them looked at him warily. He then smiled because he remembered they had a good reason. Kakashi said, we have a C-ranked mission? Really? Nay, what is it, sensei? Do we get to do something cool? Something totally awesome? We'll be saving villages from torrents of raging floods, plucking them from the midst of disaster and will no doubt be lauded by all as great heroes, said Kakashi. Really? All 3 of their eyes were big and bright. Kakashi told them, nope, and smashed them. We'll be building up levies. All 3 popped. Still, it is a C rank. Meet me at the North Gate tomorrow at 5, ready for an extended mission absence. Do you remember what does and doesn't go in your packs? All of them nodded. Good. Dismissed. No more training today, that's an order. They all pouted, but Kakashi knew the boys would be upset if he called it that. He smiled as he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. When Kakashi got to the rusty canteen that night, he sat down with a group of other Junin. Yo. Kakashi, Hayate said as he passed him a sake bottle. What's this I hear about you requesting a C rank for your brats? The Kurenai asked with wide eyes. What? Guy and Asuma just looked at each other. Generation M asked, already? Haven't you only had those brats for a few weeks? Meh, about 3 months, Kakashi said with a shrug. But I was told that we wouldn't be allowed a C rank until the first 6 months pass, to allow us time to really concentrate on getting our teams in shape, Kurenai said, nervous. What can I say? They're good kids, Kakashi said as the waitress cleared the table, making it impossible to see his face. Exceptional kids. Well, from the academy reports, I can see maybe Sasuke being ready, Asuma said. But that Haruno girl was nothing special, and Uzumaki was dead last. Kakashi said in a vague way, not everything important to know is written in a report. Besides, we're only helping to build levees for the annual floods. He rolled his eyes and said, and let me guess, you get one of the cushy port cities? Ma, there's nothing so fancy, Kakashi said. Smaller place up north, Kamato. Asuma whistled and asked, and the old man's sending fresh genin up there. I did that mission as a chunin 1 year. Here's hoping none of you drown. The genin of Team 7 were shocked to see that Kakashi wasn't even late, he was early. He got right to work when they all showed up. He said, all right. First things first. What's in your packs? He thought the packs of the 3 genin on their first mission away from Konoha would be full. Instead, they looked like they were just about full. But Kakashi understood when his kids took them apart to show only a few scrolls. There were clear benefits to having a young Fuinjutsu genius on your team. Ah. I'm going to assume you all have at least the standard supply lists? They all agreed. And in the event we have to leave without our packs, you're not carrying anything you care overly much about leaving behind, are you? They said no. Good. The client doesn't expect us for 5 days, but that doesn't mean we can slack. I expect us there in 3. We'll be using the tree walking technique to help us run through the forests until they're too thin to provide a cover. Do you remember my showing you how last week? He asked, and they agreed. Then let's go, Kakashi said, giving the orders with both his voice and the Anbu hand signals. He taught them the unspoken language slowly because he knew that all 3 of them would be able to use it later if they wanted to. Are there more leaves? Sasuke signed back in a clumsy way and asked about the 6 Junin they had all seen. No, go. Kakashi replied, pointing them north-northwest. He then let them jump off and turned to his audience. We'll be back in a few weeks, he said with a smile. The 3 of them rolled their eyes and said, Yamada ne. Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy all nodded. They were impressed by how quickly and professionally Kakashi had taught his genin how to do his job. When he was done making his point, Kakashi turned to go play with his kids. Naruto looked at the dusty, empty town in a shallow valley on the northeastern border of fire and asked, so, this is Kamato, huh? We're supposed to keep this place from flooding, right? Sasuke asked with doubt. It looks like it hasn't rained here in about a year. Kakashi said, well, that's part of the problem. All that snow up there in the mountains melts in the spring, he said, pointing to the mountains in the distance. But those same mountains throw a lot of the rain in other directions the rest of the year. So the ground stays very dry all year, except for when the spring floods come from spring melt. This little place is where all the mountain streams meet and the flooding begins. And the water spills into other springs that cause flooding all the way down fire until it empties in the Gulf. It goes down to a trickle up here after about 2 or 3 weeks, and leaves this place in drought the rest of the year. About 10 to 12 teams get sent out every spring to reinforce the levee system from here to the Gulf to keep the water in the rivers and out of the towns. Why don't they just find a permanent solution to the problem instead of just patching everything up every year? Naruto was curious. Well, Kakashi thought. It is a couple million gallons of rushing floodwater. I imagine it's not the easiest thing in the world to deal with, nay? Everyone, including Naruto, thought that was a very good explanation, but Naruto kept thinking about it. When the village leader met Team 7 the next morning, he was clearly upset and shocked. I asked Konoha for shinobi, and this is what they gave me? Kids? Scrawny kids? I assure you, my students are fully capable of handling anything that might occur in this mission, said Kakashi. But in case an emergency comes up, I'm a Junin of Konoha, and will make sure the mission is a success. The headman still didn't look too happy, but he nodded his agreement anyway because he knew he couldn't do much about it, even if he liked the team Konoha had put him on. He turned on his heel and led them to a big building with only one room that was just outside of the village. It was clear he was still not happy about being assigned the young genin. Spring floods start in about 2 weeks, he said sternly. What we need from you lot is to go make big sandbags. There's a barren field a few miles out we always use. The village women weave the bags all year long, so we have plenty of them for you to fill. Once you fill up a pallet's worth of bags, bring them back and we'll show you where and how to stack them. He flung open the door and waved them through. Took a look around the big room and asked, how many bags do you need? The bags were stacked from side to side and all the way to the ceiling. All of them. Even Kakashi's eyes got bigger. The Naruto said, holy shit. The others agreed but didn't say anything. The village chief and many of the people who lived in Kamado had a lot more respect for Konoha Shinobi in general and Team 7 in particular after practicing Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu a few times that night. Their leader gave them a small room in his house where they all slept together. Kakashi claimed the futon by saying he was the most senior. As Naruto opened their sleeping bags, the genin all rolled their eyes but didn't say much. But Naruto couldn't sleep because he was thinking too much about the problem of the annual floods. A few of the Kage Bunshin he made to help with the sandbags had snuck off to check out the levees and riverbanks, and no one had noticed. Some of them had gone all the way down to where the almost dry riverbed met a much bigger river. The path looked like it was made by people, and the river it led to was already very high and dangerous. One of the copies followed the river down to where it met the gulf. Along the way, it saw at least a dozen villages with sandbags stacked along the levees. It made him wonder if any of these villages were the ones Kakashi had said had hired Konoha to help build the levees. The clone then decided it had seen everything it could and stopped being there. While lying in his sleeping bag and staring at the ceiling, Naruto quietly took in the fact that the spring melt water wasn't useful anywhere. He also thought about the dry, dusty land around him. Kamado could use the water, but not all at once. He thought there might be something he could do. When they went back to the field the next morning to keep filling sandbags, Naruto thought the area looked a bit like a bowl because of all their work. Then he blinked, and his thoughts seemed to mix. In the background, the shaky start of an idea started to take shape. So, when he made his army of Kage Bunshin, he told them to keep digging the bowl out. His body worked to fill sandbag after sandbag, and his mind planned how to fill the bowl. When it was finally time for lunch, Naruto quickly took out a storage scroll from his pouch and began making notes quickly on an even bigger scroll that was still sealed. It was nothing new for his team, they were just shaking their heads at him. Sakura said, "We'll bring you back a bento, Naruto." Naruto said nothing but a grunt and kept working quickly on his calculations. He was so busy with work that he didn't even notice when his team came back. "TCH, leave him alone," Sasuke told Kakashi as he was about to pull him away from the scroll. "It's not as though we don't have enough Narutos already helping us." She also said, "Yeah, and who knows what he's going to come up with. Maybe it'll make all this go faster." Kakashi gave Naruto a shrug. If his team wasn't going to complain about him slacking off, he was likely to let him keep making things. He had never seen Naruto come up with something that wasn't very clever and useful, or, if you think back to the seal that made Sasuke's hair as pink as Sakura's for a few hours, at least fun. When he went back to the job site, he saw that the 1,000 Naruto copies were still digging and filling sandbags. Sasuke was right. There were already plenty of Narutos to go around. Finally, Naruto came up for air. He looked around and saw that it was getting dark, and his team was just finishing up for the day. He asked, "What's going on?" As a joke, Sakura asked, "Back with the land of the living?" He scratched his head and said, "Huh?" Kakashi asked, "Want to tell us what you were working on?" Sasuke and Sakura stared at him when he asked the question. They hadn't asked in a long time because they were afraid Naruto would talk in seal language. "Oh, right. So, what I wanted to do was find a way to move the water from the flood to the bowl, because they look like they could use it. The water, that is, not the bowl. But one couldn't think of any transportation seals that I knew of, so I started on modifying a storage seal into a two-part seal, so that the first half would automatically store the water in it when water touches it and then the second half automatically empties the water out. That way it can move the water from where it is to where I want it to be, but I had to figure out." When Kakashi could feel his eyes getting tired, he stopped him. The man asked, Naruto?" He huffed and crossed his arms over his chest. "Maybe a little less technical jargon?" "So what? Fine then," he pouted. "How's this for less technical? Water touch seal 1. Water move to seal 2. No more flood. Lake for Kamado. The end." While all of these thoughts were going through Kakashi's mind, he blinked. His question was, "Can you show?" Naruto gave a shrug. "Sure." Kakashi was amazed to see Naruto writing the sealing script on Tuofuda in a way that didn't look like he was paying much attention. With each stroke of the brush, the ink became charged with his chakra. Naruto's fingers flicked through a long list of hand seals before slapping each ofuda with one hand. The brush then vanished. Naruto said, "Fuin," and then let out a harsh breath. "Well, that's done." Anyone have a bowl handy? Kakashi took a dog dish out of one of his own storage scrolls and gave it to them. Though he wasn't brave enough to ask, Naruto looked at Kakashi in a strange way, as if he wanted to know why the dog dish was always with him. Because my dog calls, Kakashi said, when I give them treats during training. Naruto asked, you have dog summons? And then shook his head. No, wait, never mind. So, watch. 2 seals were in his hands. He put one in the bottom of the dog dish and poured water over the other from his canteen. It went away and then came back in the dish. She said, cool, as she watched. Kakashi asked, do you think this could work for the meltwater? Naruto said, and that this field could be the bowl. His team looked at the field. Sasuke finally said, that will take a lot of digging. Kakashi told Naruto to work out the last few bugs in the sealing system while he sent a message to the Hokage to explain what was going on and ask for permission to change their mission. Kakashi also told Team 7 to keep sandbagging in case permission was denied, which he thought was unlikely, or the village turned down the offer, which Naruto thought was even less likely, given how much they seemed to value water. This also continued to hollow out the bowl shape for the seal structure, in case that goes ahead. Their attention was drawn to the sky by the cry of a hawk. Even Naruto woke up from his seal-induced trance. From their first days in the academy, all Konoha shinobi learned how to deal with hawks. They were the Hokage's best non-shinobi messengers. Even so, Naruto was still mad at how long it took for the message to arrive. The hawk flew down to them and put up an arm as it looked for a place to land. He didn't wince as the bird dug its claws into his arm. Instead, he used a little chakra to protect the skin from getting punctures. Then he took the message out of the pouch and read it all the way through. As he went, it was as easy to figure out the code as if it hadn't been there at all. Naruto was twitching his fingers on his leg because he was so nervous and asked, well? The Hokage had given him permission to talk things over again. He also made it very clear that he wanted to talk to Kakashi for a long time when Team 7 got back to Konoha. He winced. The Hokage's words made it clear that this was not going to be a friendly conversation. He told the bird, home, and threw it into the air. She asked, Kaka-sensei, can we do it or not? Sasuke looked at him with his head tilted to the side. Kakashi gave his team a smile. Let's talk to the leader, he told them. Naruto did not grumble at Kakashi's ways of negotiating. He was a very good shinobi, but it was clear that he wasn't good at negotiating. Naruto then gently pushed Kakashi in the ribs and took over. He used the Anbu sign language to tell Kakashi, target mine, which was a bit morbid since it was meant to be used for killings but was the only sign he had learned so far that might work. Naruto said with a wise nod, honorable headman, I can see you have some doubts. But then, I remember you also had doubts that we were capable of accomplishing the mission you originally contracted Konoha for. The headman said, that's right. Remind him that he was wrong about what we said once. Check, Naruto thought. Now let's talk about the constant drought and how much it costs to fix the floods every year. Still, I know you are a clever man, for you must be to have kept Kamato in such bounty, even with such drought. And prosperous as well, as you must be to hire a team of shinobi every year to deal with floods. So I can understand why a smart headman such as yourself might be skeptical of our claim. Check, and check again. Make him feel like I'm on his side. But the headman rubbed his chin in and said, it's not that I don't believe you. But it seems far too good to be true. And if Konoha could do such a thing, why would they wait so many years to offer up such a solution? Naruto tried to make the headman understand by saying, but this is the first time that my team has been given such a task. That's the problem that comes with running a government. With so many people to be responsible for, things often get the simplest solution instead of the best. For example, the simplest solution in this case has been assigning a team to do exactly as you contracted for. Help build up levees for the yearly spring thaw. As a headman yourself, you must understand how such a thing might come to be when you have dozens upon dozens of requests and complaints a day. The headman wisely nodded, showing that he understood and agreed with Naruto. Naruto didn't smile. This was much easier than the sales pitches he'd been making in the Akasan for years. He already had it, and the headman ate right off his hand. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Sakura and Sasuke were looking at him strangely, as if they didn't understand where this version of him had come from. What about Kakashi? He looked as bored as ever, but Naruto saw that he was paying close attention to him. It was by both of our villages' good fortune that this year, it happened to be my team assigned to your request, Honorable Headman, Naruto said. My team is uniquely qualified to fill not only your original request for assistance in sandbagging the levees, but also in that we were able to see a possibility for a permanent solution to the dual issues of flooding and drought. Of course, should you decide it is in the best interests of your village to decline our offer, we will act with the honor of all Konoha shinobi and complete our original mission. Please rest assured of that. But I hope you will at least allow us a brief demonstration of what we are offering, so that you might truly consider it. The village's leader agreed and bowed his head briefly. It would be an honor to see what solution the honorable shinobi of the great Konohagakure no Sato might offer our humble village, he said. Naruto set out the 2 bowls they had brought just for this purpose and said, I am a practitioner of a rather esoteric shinobi discipline. Not many people see the value in this very old and subtle art. In fact, just looking at these 2 thin strips of paper would make any smart man wonder what they might be used for, he said as he held up the 2 ofuda for the headman to see. The script is peculiar and illegible. The paper want to tear at the lightest tug, if it doesn't first blow away in the gentlest of breezes. Not a good plan. Naruto was about to mess everything up, so Kakashi signed to him. Failure. Naruto didn't pay attention to him and put the 2 ofuda in different bowls. The headman was enthralled by Naruto's performance and could not take his eyes off of it. Just the way Naruto planned it. However, things that seem weak and hard to understand can be very useful in the hands of someone who can figure them out. Keep an eye on it, he said, taking his cup and pouring water into one bowl. The boss let out a gasp as he saw it show up in the second. Naruto said, what we propose, honorable headman, as he kept adding water to the bowl, is to move the flood water from the river to a reservoir, just like the water from this canteen is moved from bowl to bowl. That way, Kamado will be safe from the flood and have water all the time. Naruto, who is always on point, timed it so that the last drop of water fell from the canteen and the first bowl ran dry at just the right moment. He let the headman sit and think for a while, so the spell he had cast could take effect. Naruto poured water from the second bowl back into his canteen and said, of course, such smart men as the headman and the elders of this village should make such a decision about the possibility of such a change in the way of life for those of Kamado. I would never think I was qualified to make such a choice. All I ask is that you think about it, honorable headman. Now excuse us, we still have to finish the sandbagging. The headman stopped him as he reached into the bowls to peel off the seals. Wait, he told her. I would like to confer with the village elders about your proposal. If it would please you, honored guests, I would humbly ask that you wait for our return. Naruto bowed his head and said, it will be done as you ask, respected headman. He didn't try to hide his smile as the headman rushed out of the room. What was that? Kakashi asked, confused by what Naruto had done. It was a mess, Naruto said with a sneer. Haven't you ever done any sort of negotiating before? Kakashi said, Ma, my skills are better at killing people and doing black ops work than at being diplomatic. It was the most honest thing he had said in a long time. You don't seem to have that trouble. Okazu asked Naruto, yeah, where did that come from? It was like you were a merchant or a swindler, Sasuke said. Yeah, a swindler or something. Naruto gave a shrug. Well, I've been both, Naruto surprised his team by saying. He looked at them and asked, what? I'm an orphan. I had to raise funds for the academy somehow. I've sold everything from snake oil to sugar to secrets and all that's in between. Isn't that taken care of by the orphans fund? Kakashi asked. TCH, Naruto snapped, turning his head away. If it makes you feel better to think so. Now quickly, before they come back. What are we supposed to charge for this? The Hokage advised that a large permanent seal structure like this is worth an A rank to an A rank mission, said Kakashi. Danger from enemy shinobi is of course low, but the danger from crafting the seal is high, and the number of people who can do it is low, so. Naruto waved him off and said, yeah, supply and demand and all that. I get it. Now hush, they're almost back. Kakashi thought that the headman had come back with a group of old men who were the village elders. They asked Naruto to show them something else, and he gladly did. Kakashi tried to figure out what the boy was like as he watched Naruto negotiate with men 5 times or more his age and beat them. He was very open most of the time, but sometimes he was shy. He was very smart, but his grades at the academy were the worst he had ever seen. He was sneaky and cunning most of the time, except when he was, of all the times, loud, bold, and orange. And he was very independent, even for a child shinobi. The only time he wasn't was when he was so desperately in need that Kakashi had a hard time turning him away. Several things about him didn't make sense. He knew, did, and said a lot of strange things, which made Kakashi even more confused. After that, Naruto called out a crazy person, and Kakashi almost choked. His jaw dropped as he saw Naruto bargain like a fishmonger's wife until he got the deal he wanted and Kamado's headman looked thrilled to have it. That's it, respected leader, Naruto said as he bowed. He said, we are, and bowed back, to be paid quarterly over the course of 5 years. Kakashi was glad he had a long meeting with the Hokage for the first time since getting the message. Well, Naruto, Kakashi asked. What now? Naruto asked. What do you mean, Kaka-sensei? Oh, Just that you've so far managed to invent a completely new seal structure that will change the lives of the entire village, get our mission upgraded to an A-ranked mission, and single-handedly renegotiate the terms of our mission, bargaining to get terms most favorable to Konoha. So, what's next, Taiko-chan? Kakashi asked with a smile. Naruto half asked, half yelled, what? But that's, you, ga. He spat at Sakura and Sasuke, who didn't try to hide the fact that they were laughing. And you two are supposed to be on my side, he said with a pout. Of course, Naruto Taiko, Sakura said without meaning to. Anything you say, Taiko, Sasuke agreed. Naruto told her, you stink. But really, you know a lot about seals, Kakashi said. What do you need us to do? Naruto peered out from between his eyelashes to see if he was serious. It looked like he was. Well, Naruto said, but he wasn't sure what to say because everyone was looking at him. What would really help? If you could somehow figure out how big the reservoir needs to be and start digging it. Sure, Kakashi happily said. Naruto took out his huge scroll full of notes that were impossible to understand, and Kakashi sat down to do some math of his own. While he was writing down everything he knew about the spring thaw, he saw Sakura hovering over his shoulder and Sasuke cleaning and sharpening his kunai and shuriken for no reason. Carry the 3, Kakashi-sensei, she told him calmly. He saw that she was right when he looked down at his math. After a short time, she spoke up again. You forgot to add a X, Kaka-sensei, she told him. He clenched his teeth and added the X, where she had pointed. He did this after taking a moment to look over his work and realizing that she was right, once more. Kaka-sensei, you need to factor it too. Kakashi threw the scroll at her and then sat down next to Sasuke. He said, so, you come up with a way to make me feel inadequate and completely superfluous today, too? Well, Sasuke said, his eyes always on his kunai. I could show you my 2 Sharingan eyes if you really want. Then Sasuke fell off the tea kettle and into a stack of sandbags. Kakashi was sitting on top of the big pile, stretching out like a cat, and ignoring his whole team while holding Uchiha Paradise. The girl called out, Kaka-sensei, are you done pouting yet? Kakashi raised an eyebrow, but she kept reading without looking up to see her. He wasn't being sad. Come on, Kaka-sensei, we need help to make the reservoir, she said. Don't bother, Sasuke told her. He's feeling old. Probably we should just leave him so he doesn't have to strain himself. And I bet we can get Naruto to modify some of the explosive seals to have bigger explosions. He couldn't finish because Kakashi walked up to them and threw Sasuke back into the sandbag pile. It had been decided by Kakashi a while ago that he should step in whenever Naruto and explosives were together. Kakashi asked in a funny way, oh, are we ready? Sasuke got up and brushed his hair. You know, hearing problems and gray hair are signs of old age, he said. It's silver, Kakashi said in protest, and it's been that way since I was a child, twerp. Come on, this old man still has a few things to teach you. Naruto followed them, his nose still in the big scroll that he had 2 clones carry for him so that he could take notes. Kakashi told Sakura, now mark off the area we need to dig in, and I'll show you how ninjutsu can be applied in non-combat situations. Sasuke, you're going to help. He looked back and forth between him and Sakura. He asked, can I help mark the area instead? Kakashi said, no, and Naruto and Sakura laughed. When Sakura was done, she and Naruto sat back and watched Sasuke and Kakashi. What does Kakashi say? Ready. Sasuke said, yes, then let's do this. Kakashi stood in the middle of the huge reservoir that was supposed to be there. It was a lot bigger than he thought it would be, and he started running through hand seals so fast that it was hard for any of the genin to pick out a single one. Underworld Swamp. Kakashi yelled as he slammed his hand into the ground, sending his chakra deep into the ground. The area that Sakura had marked off became a muddy mess. He didn't stop there, though. Before the mud could swallow him up, he used chakra to level up his feet and start making seals for another jutsu. He yelled, wind tunnel, and a tornado of wind blew the mud all over the place. He let go of the jutsu, and the reservoir was already completely gone. He took a good look around and nodded. He then got out of it and looked at his 3 genin, who were smeared with mud and were staring at him. He laughed and said, oh, it looks like you 3 need a bath. They didn't even have to look at each other before they jumped into action, tackling him and pulling him down into the mud with them. All of their eyes twitched. He laughed as he let them go and stomped on them until they were completely covered in mud. He told them, Ma, that's enough now, while they all pouted. They were all really good kids. Great kids. He told Sasuke, you're up. Sasuke was shocked as he looked at him. Kakashi asked in a rude way, oh, you want to get clean first? Okay, he said. Then he quickly did a water jutsu that worked like a fire hose and soaked himself and the kids. He said, all clean. They glared at him, who was drenched. Sasuke gave him an angry sniff and then jumped into the reservoir to help him use a fire jutsu to turn the base of the reservoir into something that was unusually hard and looked like concrete. Naruto said, "That, as he looked out over the lake, is one big ass bowl." She said, "Wow," and then she looked up at him. "You're a lot cooler than I thought, sensei." Kakashi hit him on the head with his hand and shook his head. "All of them are brats." Naruto took a deep breath and looked out over the huge area of the reservoir that he would have to cover with seals. The thing was very big. One more thing he forgot to think about was that the way he usually did two-part seals was to do both halves at the same time. That was not possible with these two areas being so big and far apart. Then he ran off the side of the lake, landed in the middle, and started painting the ceiling script across the basin's bottom. First he worked through lunch, and then through dinner. Finally, his teammates dragged him back to the headman's house to feed him and give him a break. He wasn't having a good night's sleep. He hadn't realized how connected he was to the seal through the active chakra until now. He thought that was probably because he finished most of the seals quickly. He went back the next morning before anyone else woke up to finish the first draft of the script for the reservoir. He then went to the dry riverbed to work on the second half. Sakura wasn't happy when she found him. She told him, "You didn't eat breakfast." It was so interesting to him that he hardly looked at her. His mind buzzed with the need to finish it, calling for completion. She raised her fist to warn him, "Baka, are you even listening to me?" He grabbed Naruto and shook his head. Then he got down on his knees in front of him. He looked at the boy's face and then put his hand on his chin to make him look at him. The seal is already partway active, isn't it?" he said quietly. "It wasn't helpful that we dragged you away last night, did it? Here, eat this." He shoved a food pill into Naruto's mouth, and he swallowed it automatically. "That should hold you for a few hours anyway. Do you need us to do anything?" Naruto wanted to go back to the seal, so he couldn't really hear him. Kakashi sighed because Naruto wasn't responding. "Come on," he told them. "Leave him be. He has to finish, or it'll just pull at his chakra until he's left an empty husk." The two of them yelled, "What? We've got to let him finish, and watch him carefully to make sure he doesn't overextend his chakra," said Kakashi. "But we need to let him finish." So, they watched him sweep the riverbed with his brush and chakra all day. More and more people in the village stopped what they were doing to watch. They were amazed by the ninja's strange work. After putting down the brush, it was getting dark. He made 24 cage bunshin by putting his hands together in a familiar shape. About half of them left right away. When Kakashi looked in their direction, he thought they were going to the reservoir. "Kaka-sensei," Naruto said in a rough voice. "When I tell you, can you and Sasuke toss me up? I need a direct line of sight to the reservoir." Kakashi and Sasuke nodded, and Sakura bit her nails in worry. The clones in the riverbed then all moved into place, and Naruto told Kakashi he was ready. Naruto and Sasuke ran off, and Kakashi sent Naruto high first. When they started to slow down, Sasuke and Naruto put their hands together and threw them in a circle to throw Naruto even higher. After that, everything stopped. The chakra level was so high that even the villagers could feel it. Thin lines of blue chakra shot down from where the clones could barely see Naruto. They started a long series of hand seals right away. Finally, they yelled, "Fuin!" and slammed their palms to the ground. The complicated script that Naruto had been painting for 2 days started to move and twist all of a sudden. It was just as interesting for Sasuke, Kakashi, and Sakura to watch the sealing process as it was for everyone else in the village. Finally, the script stopped moving and became still, making it look like waves in the ground. After a while, the clones and the lines of blue chakra that fed them vanished. Kakashi's eyes were already in the sky, as he tried to figure out when Naruto would return and what kind of shape he would be in. Seeing him fall from the sky made him think the shape wasn't good. "Sasuke, send me up," Kakashi told him. He could do it himself in Konoha with the help of a tree or tall building nearby. But he'd need help getting the lift here, in the middle of nowhere, where the only thing taller than a house is. With a nod and a cupped hand, Sasuke got his chakra ready to lift Kakashi into the air. Then Kakashi jumped and used his chakra to help him get off the ground. He then got close to the boy and used his chakra to pull him in. He had been landing so many times that he didn't even have to think about it. He used chakra to strengthen his legs so he wouldn't break anything or roll in an awkward way. After that, Sakura and Sasuke rushed over to see Naruto. He saw that the headman was also there. The headman told Kakashi, "I didn't know this would be so dangerous." He replied, "Everything has a cost." Kakashi then focused on giving Naruto a food pill. Many people think only of the wondrous things shinobi can accomplish so easily. What they don't understand is the hours and hours of training we must do every day to be able to perform such tasks. The vast majority of our lives we must dedicate to the ninja arts, and they always require us to make some sacrifice to use them. So now you see that while the amount we requested in exchange for creating your reservoir may have seemed very high to you, the fact is the cost to us is equally high, but in a different currency. The leader pointed to Naruto and asked, "Is there anything I can do?" Kakashi shook his head as Sakura stroked his throat to help him swallow the pill. "No, we'll return to our quarters to tend to Naruto. As soon as he's healed, we'll take our leave." He slept for 2 days and didn't wake up. He was so buzzed and sleepy when he woke up that Kakashi had to force him to eat and drink before he went back to bed. That night, though, he woke up much smarter and very hungry the next morning, which made his team very happy. On the 4th day, he wouldn't get out of bed and told them he would leave while they were away if they didn't help him. That only made Kakashi tie him up and keep a close eye on him. After that, Naruto decided not to bother him too much. He had never had someone look out for him like that before, and he liked it. Naruto begged Kakashi for 5 days before he finally let him get up and walk around the village for a while. He looked at the seals in the riverbed and the lake and said they were perfect. Naruto said, "Nay, Kaka-sensei," and he pulled on his vest quietly to get his attention. "Why are they all looking at me funny?" Kakashi looked at the villagers. They were all looking at Naruto with faces that showed a mix of respect and admiration. He shook his head that Naruto didn't get it, and he was about to explain it when they heard yelling. People all over the village were yelling, "The floods are coming! The floods are coming!" Everyone was running to the bottom of the river. Naruto yelled, "Let's go see the seals in action," as he broke free of Kakashi and ran after the crowd. Following, Kakashi cursed and did the same, as did Sasuke and Sakura. Everyone stopped in shock at what they saw. A wall of angry water was rushing down the riverbed like a huge torrent. Everyone held their breath to see if the seals would work. The first one then got through the seals and stopped being there. People in the village began to cheer. He said, "Let's go see the bowl. One want to see the water appearing there, too." A rush to the basin showed that most people in the village had heard him and agreed with him. The crowd was still cheering even though the water hadn't even reached the sides of the basin they had dug out when they got there. The Sandaime asked in a rude way, "So, the Naruto Lagoon?" As soon as Kakashi and his team got back to Konoha, they were called to the Hokage Tower for a debriefing. "It was the Great Naruto Lagoon," Kakashi said with a sigh. "Ah, yes, of course," the Sandaime replied with a smile. "The Great Naruto Lagoon. Tell me, how do Sakura and Sasuke feel about that name?" Kakashi laughed and said, "The brats thought it was funny." He asked in surprise, "They thought it was funny?" "Very," Kakashi replied. "It was originally going to be the Naruto Lake, then those two heard about it and started campaigning the villagers to make it the Great Naruto Lake. I'm not sure how it got turned from lake to lagoon, though." The Hokage asked again, "They thought it was funny?" He knew that something like that would make Uchiha Sasuke angry with jealousy and feelings of not being good enough. In 3 months, Kakashi had changed that reaction into a joke. He wondered what he had done. "Well, see, it's Naruto," and he kept calling it a bowl, and a Naruto bowl is. Kakashi started to speak again but stopped and scratched his head. "I guess you had to be there." The Sandaime said, "Yes, I think so, and did you find it equally amusing for your work to be named after one of your students?" "My work?" Kakashi asked, not sure what to say. Sandaime said, bending his fingers in front of him. "You've been holding back on us, Kakashi. I had no idea you were such a seal master." "Wait, what? Come now," the Hokage told them sternly. "To be able to come up with the idea, then design and implement such a seal structure is so short a time is nothing short of genius. I had known you were studying them, of course, but you never let on you were so far along in your mastery." "You think it was me who came up with the seal structure?" Kakashi asked me. "Well, yes, who else? Why do you think it's called the Great Naruto Lagoon?" The Hokage asked. "Naruto made the seal structure for Komodo?" And then shook his head. "He's only been studying seals for a few months. He didn't even know what a seal was until I explained it the night he graduated from the academy. And you want me to believe he somehow was the architect behind this?" "You could ask any of my genin," Kakashi said with a shrug. He said, "Ah, but they are your genin. I have no doubt they would lie if you asked them to." "Of course," Kakashi said. "But to lie to the Hokage? I think you overestimate me. Besides, you could ask anyone in Komodo, and they would say the same." He got up from his chair and turned to look at the monument. He filled and lit his favorite pipe without paying attention as he thought about what Kakashi had said. When there was silence for a while, he spoke again without looking back at him. The Hokage told Kakashi, "I think you don't think as highly of yourself as you do. I've seen you interact with your children, and I believe they'd do almost anything for you." "Hokage-sama," Kakashi said in protest. He turned to look Kakashi in the eye and said, "This is not a criticism. On the contrary, I'm very pleased with how you have managed to develop your team into a cohesive unit. And you should be proud of yourself as well." Kakashi didn't know what to say or do, so he did nothing and watched the Hokage smoke his pipe some more. So, young Naruto really is a budding Fuinjutsu prodigy? He is, Kakashi said for sure. He's already beyond my knowledge, though I try to guide him when I can. I've sent out some feelers to try to find Jiraiya so he can at least talk to the boy and make sure he isn't going to blow himself up, but without being able to go after any of the leads my feelers turn up I haven't been able to find him. He gently tapped out the leaves from his pipe, which was now empty. Here's what we will do. I will give Team 7 2 C rank missions and 2 months to complete them. One will be to track down Jiraiya. The other is to track down Tsunade. I have messages to give them both. Kakashi scratched the back of his head and asked, Both? Both, Sandame said. And if you happen to convince Jiraiya to talk to Naruto while you deliver my message, well then, there's no harm in that.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.